I just let her be with me 24/7. I remember my dad always telling me that Indira Gandhi used to shadow Nehru all the time. And she just learned world politics because she shadowed him. So to me, I just let her shadow me. She used to come to my clinic with me. She sits with me for most meetings. I have most phone calls happen in front of her because she's with me all the time.
In this week of questions I wanted to ask, I'm talking to India's leading cosmetic dermatologist and skincare expert, Dr. Rashmi Shetty. She's an industry pioneer as an aesthetic physician, a celebrity dermatologist, and one of the very few experts in non-surgical aesthetic medicine. In this episode, we spoke about how she's running multiple businesses with offices in different cities, being a single parent, how she takes out time for herself amidst her hectic schedule, and the importance of discipline in her life. Guys, Rashmi, thank you so much for coming on board and agreeing to do this podcast with me called Questions I Wanted to Ask with Anshu. I think it's very interesting that I have you today. We've discussed beauty in pretty much all scenarios, with you. But I think besides the doctor that I see and besides the person that I know, there are so many aspects of your personality which amazes me and inspires me, that I feel that while you have spoken a lot about the work that you do with so many of your clients, from celebrities to many other men and women, I think I wanted to bring about the various roles that you are playing in your life as a doctor, as an entrepreneur, as a solo entrepreneur, as someone who's taking care of businesses in multiple cities and always thinking of expanding, right? As a mother, as a daughter. I mean, there are so many of these different roles that you're doing, and I see you literally moving from one thing to the other to the this thing. And I mean, it's a question which comes to my mind, that how do you structure your brain? How do you plan your day, Rashmi?
So Anshu, firstly, thank you for having me on this show. I know
My
you
pleasure.
have had a lot of wonderful women, so thank you for considering me among those wonderful women. Thank you.
My
How do I
pleasure.
plan my day? I think it's an unconditional thing taught to me by my mom, by my dad. It's something that I've seen while I grew up. So I've seen my dad. We had an advertising and marketing agency in those days, which was a very forward business at that time. So when my dad passed away, coincidentally, that year was 50th year of our agency. So it was that way back that he had started the agency. So I would see him multitask in those days because there were no computers, right? So by 11 o'clock, all the release orders had to go to different presses.
Especially the print, because that it
Be
print was there.
physically dispatched.
Yeah.
Correct. It was print.
Yeah.
It had to be physically dispatched everywhere. And physically, there were a whole lot of things that needs to be done and juggled. The artwork, the negatives, the copyrights, everything used to happen in a house. Everything had to be juggled. Everything had to reach 11. It had to leave the office. And I used to see my dad really put everything together, from the creative part of it to the sales part of it to the angle of how it had to appear. So I saw him multitasking very effortlessly.
Mm-hmm.
Likewise, I saw my mom multitasking. We were 3 girls, all 4 years apart. Very difficult. Our house was a typical house where my papa's brothers lived with us. Mama's one sister lived at us at all point of time. Somebody or the other was studying in Bangalore. So they used to come from Bangalore and stay with us. My grandmom, my dad's mom, used to live with us. So it was a house full, and it was the regular South Indian house, which had to have all meals different, all meals cooked for everybody. And, I used to get stupid prizes in school, like best uniform prize.
Wow.
I asked my mom, how would you do? And that was totally because of my mom, right? Nothing for me to take credit about. So my uniform was the most impeccably ironed uniform ever. You wouldn't find one crease. And my
was your mom
perfect. Yeah,
was your mom helping that? Was your mom helping that?
Totally perfectly ironed uniform came from my mom. Even after it came from Dobie, she wouldn't like the folds. So she used to again iron out all the creases. The madness I still have in me.
Really?
So she used to do that. Our dabbas were perfectly packed. My shoes, the black shoes, used to be shining at all times. So I used to always get the best uniform girl. So likewise, from my uniform to my shoes to my dad's attire to maybe all of us three children wanting three different things to brother-in-laws at home to a mother-in-law at home, she just multitasked. And the other day I was telling someone, I've never seen my mom in a bedhead. She never woke up and with a dirty hair or a messy hair or a messy face. Never, ever, ever in these many years.
Yeah.
I don't know how my mom looks the minute she wakes up. I've never seen her without nicely combed hair, groomed face, neat face. Never, ever. So I've never seen my mom in a nightie. So these are things that I grew up with. So unconditionally, I am very systematic. I like to follow rituals. I like to have a pattern to the day. But that having a pattern is not something that I design. It just happens.
Sure.
I think it's there in my brain. It's there in my system.
Sure. So this is basically you're putting it all to discipline and
So I was reading that book called Ikigai or Ikigai. Yeah.
Huh.
So I was reading that book, and the essence of that book was about ritualistic discipline and repeating things in a way that it becomes your comfort system. This is what I follow. That's it. Unconsciously, that's what I follow. And when things go, I cannot handle it.
But I mean, obviously you're dealing with, humans and, you're technically in a services business. So things do go off and you have sometimes, clients taking up a lot more time. And then during those situations when you have to get back to work, what's the frame of mind? Do you get easily perturbed and you're like, oh my God, what's happening? Because you're also taking care of, your daughter single-handedly. So what goes on in your mind?
So anybody who's part of my life knows my attachment towards my daughter. So it's like a total. It's something. It's me. That's it.
She's a replica of you, though.
Yeah, she's a replica of me, included in me. I don't know what is that chemistry, but she's there. Yeah. So
it's
whether
beautiful.
I am, it is beautiful, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I totally love that. So it's whether I'm working, unless I'm injecting, I will pick up her phone no matter what. So everybody knows it and they better live with it, because for me, my first duty is towards her. My first responsibility is towards her. So I do not really think that, oh my God, I'm doing something, I can't pick her phone. That's never been a battle in my head. I pick her phone, period. So I'm very plugged in mom. However busy I am, wherever internationally I am, I'm a very plugged in mom. So I know when she eats, I know when she sleeps, I know when she's in a bad mood, I know when her allergy hits, I know when she goes to college, I know when she comes back from college. Even now, she's 20s and I still know every second of the day where she is. So I'm a very plugged in mom. So to me, it all goes together. I don't believe in compartmentalizing.
Sure.
I believe in just everything together. If you have the brain enough to internally compartmentalize and process information. I don't compartmentalize time or a task. I compartmentalize the information.
Priorities, rather.
I wouldn't say they are priorities. I could have my daughter, my work. My work is equally important. I love my job.
Yeah.
I totally am passionate. I can't even tell you. I don't think I can live if someone took that away from me.
I know, I've seen so much of that in you.
So it's not that I need it financially. God's been very kind, but it's because I love it so much.
Yeah.
So to me, I don't see it as this is priority or that is priority.
Sure.
So it's my daughter, it's work. For me to look good, or for me to feel happy and healthy, for my staff to be that happy gang. I just love all of that together. And all of it has to happen together for me.
Sure.
So I don't say one is priority over other.
Sure. Rashmi,
so I don't know how to define that. Yeah.
No, I get this. It's interesting, Rashmi, because you're probably the only person I'll be talking today, I'll be talking in this entire series who's a doctor and who lays as much stress on internal healing and internal beauty. And it goes in the way you treat your patients. And, I come to you, I know you personally also, but I'm saying I think a lot of my questions will also be to you as as a doctor. Uh, when all of this, when women are handling all of this, right? They go through extreme stress situations, and
Yeah.
it could be at work. It could be how do you kind of handle? I mean, I know it's a very generic question, but it's bound to happen, right? Sometimes you could be very stressed because of work, and it's like it's unavoidable, but it does come back to say home, or home stress sometimes go back. How do you handle situations like that?
I think I have a switch on and switch off time. That's something that I've seen.
Sure.
Like for me, home and office is very close, and that was very purposefully done or intentionally done, because I'm a single parent and I needed Upasana to be very close to me, and I needed to reach to her in a second if need be. So always I've had consciously decided to have the home near the office. So for me, the travel time from office to home is hardly 2 minutes. That's not enough for me to wind down.
Yeah.
So if I'm stressed at work, if there is something which hasn't gone according to what I want, so it's not enough time for me to wind down. So when I reach home, I am still at that, peak level. Because either you have a 1 hour's drive, then you are winding down. I don't.
Yeah.
So I can't wind down. So I'm still at a peak when I go home. So it takes that, like Upasana catches me like that. She says, "Ma, what happened? Are you in a bad mood? What's happening?"
Yeah.
Or sometimes if she doesn't get it, she said, "What's wrong with you? Why are you behaving like that?" So that does happen. Yeah. But I know that I take that 10, 15, 20 minutes, and I can then be with her or do whatever I want to do, or shut my phone and switch off. But there are times when it can pile up. Then I have to finish that pile. Otherwise, no matter what I do, I cannot then switch off. Then that's when the angst builds.
So you consciously work. So you consciously work towards like getting rid of it as soon as you reach home.
Yeah, I am not a piling girl. I can't procrastinate. I am not that. I have to finish and then chill. I probably am the only person I know who does not procrastinate at all. Like I don't have a to-do list, because there is no to-do list. I've done the list.
Amazing.
Yeah, I do not. I can't function. Like if I haven't finished what I have to finish today, I cannot function. So I have to finish it.
But tell me, Rashmi, how does then being an entrepreneur work? Because like we all know, I am an entrepreneur. So are you, and you're doing so many multiple things with Raskin, with the patients, and I know that there are so many other things lined up. Right? The entrepreneur's mind never stops. So even when you come back home, you're constantly thinking and, all of that. So how do you disconnect from that then? Like, and especially for women entrepreneurs, because it's really, really tough. Because
I don't disconnect. Thankfully, now my daughter is at a stage where she herself is an entrepreneur.
Sure.
So she gets it when I'm still chatting about it. Sometimes she gets irritated. She's still a kid at the end of the day. So sometimes she gets irritated, but she gets it when I'm still discussing work. It's early morning. Sometimes I open my eyes and I suddenly have to discuss something with her. She's okay to indulge me. She indulges me and discusses that.
Yeah.
So to me, I don't have to shut off. So I have let me say I have the luxury of being a single parent, luxury of not having family that I have to get up and immediately cater to and behave a certain way, or a husband who I have to talk a certain way. So the luxury also of being a single parent and a sole parent and a sole person in the house with just my daughter is we are so in sync
with each other.
Yeah. It's not a thought like, oh, what do I do if I have a work thought in the morning? Do I have to shut my mouth and behave the perfect, whatever, daughter-in-law, wife, sister-in-law, whatever, till I reach office? I don't have to. I can just be myself.
But Rashmi, when Upasana was growing up, and I mean, I've met her, and she's a lovely, very, very, mature girl to her age. But when she was growing up and you were away at work, and this is many years back, because I'm sure at that point you were also growing the business, right? Did you have those thoughts that, oh my God, I'm away, and then she's going to be like, I'll somewhere disconnect from her? Did you have that fear that I constantly have that fear? I told you about this, right?
Yeah,
like when I leave my child home and constantly, oh no, I need to go back. It's been 1 hour. It's been 2 hours. What do you do to those mental voices that go on in your head? Like, how do you deal with that fear?
I think that fear for me went away right in the very beginning. I'll tell you why. So I left Upasana when she was, I think, 6 months old or 4.
Sure.
Yeah, 6 months old to go to
Sure.
England to study.
Yeah.
So I was there for at a stretch more than 9 months. And I thought
Sure.
when I go back home, my daughter's going to forget me. And my mother was taking care of at that time. She'd moved to my mom's house.
Sure.
Then I remember flying down to from Manchester airport those days, Manchester to Bombay to Bangalore, middle of the night. By the time I reached my mom's house, it was 4 a.m. She was fast asleep. I was sitting next to her, waiting for her to open her eyes. And I was so scared. She will not recognize me. That was
How old was she?
She must have been a year and 3 months or year and a half or something like that. So that's a very tender age, right? So I was sure she will not remember me. Sat there waiting. This child opens her eyes, stretches a little, and I think she didn't realize I was actually sitting in front of her.
Yeah.
She did all this, and she's like, Mama, and she just jumped, and she just wouldn't let me go.
Oh my God.
And my mother was so angry. She called her something called as Daritankinai, which is a very Tulu saying to say that this is a dog taken care of by someone.
Someone, but the dog will go back to the owner.
Jump to the owner. So she just called her that and said, what is this? And then, of course, Upu was stuck to me and she wouldn't leave me because maybe as a child she was scared that I'd left her and gone.
Yeah.
So for me, she took away that fear right there.
Yeah.
So I was never afraid that my child will detach from me.
Yeah.
After that. So she gave me that security. So after that, though consciously, I was always working in the hours that she was away. Like initially, I only worked for 2 hours when she used to go to her, whatever, that preschool. Then she started to go to school till 3. So my OPD started increasing till 3. Then she started going to school and some additional classes. So I increased it till 5. Only in the last 5 years, I think I'm working like a maniac. Yeah.
Interesting. For me, I think every time, because I'm also a working mother, every time I leave her and she shows no sign of missing me, I actually go back and ask her, do you not miss me? She says, I miss you, but you have work. And, I think it just says a lot about how you condition the child and, how they get this thing. But tell me then, in that case, because you've been a single parent throughout, what has, and especially, because you're raising a girl, not like, I mean, we're all always little fearful because you're raising a girl for security and, stuff like that. What were the things that you kept in mind as a mother that, okay, these are the things or these are the qualities that I will inculcate in her no matter what? That these are the things I have to do with her?
I think, you know what, Anshu, I don't think you can inculcate with a plan.
Yeah.
Upu just became like me.
Yeah,
like I think children learn by observation. I did not have a plan for parenting.
Yeah.
I only knew I wanted my daughter to be fiercely independent and not afraid of anything or anybody.
Sure.
That is all that I wanted her to be. Initially, I did push her. Initially, she was a slightly shy kid. I did push her to the extent I must have made her uncomfortable. But at some point, I realized there's no point pushing her. I backed off. But I just let her be with me 24/7. I remember my dad always telling me that Indira Gandhi used to shadow Nehru all the time. And she just learned world politics because she shadowed him. So to me, I just let her shadow me. She used to come to my clinic with me. She sits with me for most meetings. I have most phone calls happen in front of her because she's with me all the time. So she's learned subconsciously things going. Like I said, how subconsciously my dad and mom made me what I am. I have a feeling subconsciously there's a lot that I must have given her. And today's kids are very intelligent. So they are, she talks to me about psychology theories, Floyd's theory, acting. She has various schools of thought that she talks to me about. She talks to me about theories of business. So these kids have more access than we had towards knowledge itself. And they read a lot. They're mindful of what they're doing. And she's not shy of discussing anything with me.
Sure.
So her growth, I would say, is a lot more than my growth.
Of course, I mean, because of the time that you're in.
Time itself is different, one. So she has shaped herself also a little bit. So I wouldn't also take away all the credit for what she's become now, because she is a lot more balanced person than I am.
That's beautiful of you to say.
No, but that's true. That's true. So I can't say she learned that from me as an example. Probably she also saw what not to do from me.
Okay. I'm saying that it's basically who you are is what your kids will learn.
Yeah.
It's interesting. But, talking about independence, Rashmi, you actually, after studying, medicine and everything, then you went back to do a business management course from ISB. What made you do that? When did you do that?
ISB happened as a fluke. One of my cousins had given those ISB exams.
Sure.
And she told me, Akka, I got into a woman entrepreneur thing of ISB. It was really exciting. So one of those periods where things had got into a monotony, I just thought I'll just write an exam. So I just did that interview, wrote that, and I just got through. So I said, then why not? So it was by then I had reached, sometimes you reach the monotony of your work.
Yeah.
So I reached that monotony stage at some point. I'd gotten comfortable, but I didn't know how to expand or where to go from there.
Yeah.
I wanted to, but I didn't have the guts at some point of time. This was happening. I was in a comfortable stage, but I didn't want to rock the boat. So that's when I thought I had enough time to study more. And then I did this ISB thing.
So is that post ISB that you, founded Soulskin and, took over things, or?
Soulskin, post ISB is when I thought I have to expand towards products and not just stick to services. So we started it, but again, it was still a small company where we used to just dispense from my 2 clinics. When it actually took wings or took steam and went further was when Upasana came into the picture.
Yeah.
So she was
you want to talk about,
she was
about
that
how
young
she's
blood.
been involved.
Yeah, she was that young blood who brought a lot of energy to it. So she was like, saying, Mama, you don't have to be afraid. I'm there. Let's put it out there on the net. I am still that, the 40s where we didn't grow up with the computers. So I'm still computer phobic. I'm still phobic of what happens on the internet space.
Yeah.
So she's the one who said, no, let's do the website. Let's put it up. Let's do an e-commerce. Let's put it out there. That really catapulted the business to a different level and a different light.
Sure.
I would say more of a different light. So that's something that I must say is totally, if she wasn't there, I wouldn't do it. So it's not the ISB which led that, it's Upasana which pushed me there.
But it was basically a combination of the education that pushed you to the family that, again supported you to build this up. And now you have like way bigger plans to kind of build this and give access to a lot more patients than this thing. But, speaking of this, Rashmi, you spoke about not being comfortable in front of the computer and talking about it. How do you view yourself? Like, you're somebody who's very, very well spoken, has been speaking in media, has been a spokesperson, has been a consultant for so many of these international and Indian companies, FMCG companies, all of that. How comfortable have you been from day one talking about yourself as a doctor, as an entrepreneur, talking about all the services? The reason I'm asking is because women are generally not comfortable talking about themselves. Has it been a journey, or you were comfortable from day one? What has been the journey, like?
I have been comfortable from day one. It's my mom made sure I participated in everything, right? From a stupid fancy dress like a fisherwoman, she made me go, to a dumb charades, to a monologue, to God knows. It was a joke that, oh my God, your mother hasn't sent you to that basket making class by the signal. The guys who sit and make cane baskets at the traffic signal. So they used to sit and laugh saying, hasn't your mom asked you to go and learn from him that also? So mom literally sent me to every class on earth. I have passed the major exams, which is the 3rd level, where we call it as Vidvat. So a state level exams, or I don't know what level they are, for Bharatanatyam. I am a senior level state exams for art and painting.
I didn't know that.
Yes. So I've also attempted in Carnatic music. And I used to go even for a dabbled with a guitar class, which I couldn't, God knows, get it right.
Oh God.
Badminton, swimming, tennis, you name it. I have done everything, gone to every class.
So that's gotten you comfortable
totally.
Talking about it.
I can do anything, talk anywhere, talk to anybody, be on any stage. I'm not right.
But Rashmi, one is comfortable talking and the other one is comfortable marketing yourself. Are you comfortable marketing yourself as an entrepreneur?
No.
Yeah, which is what my point was.
No.
That are you still learning that? Why do you think like women are not comfortable talking about themselves versus men, right? And you're somebody who's achieved so much with the business, I'm saying, without actually marketing it, without getting people to talk about it.
I never believed, though I grew up looking at PR and advertising and all of that, I somehow never believed in making a big noise. I don't know whether it is the South Indian genes or it is being a woman or I don't know what it is. To me, if this product is fantastic, if you're fantastic at your subject, it'll work. Till date, in 20 years of my practice, I haven't advertised once. I haven't done a paid advertising. So at all. So for me, if you're good, we've never done things like discounts. We've never solicited service from anyone. All of these things I don't do. Because to me, if I am good at my job, people will come. If they don't come, I am very happy. I will do 4 patients and I will go back and spend time with Upasana. To me, that is more quality time. Rather than trying to do 10 patients, at a lower cost or at a dime to sell or trying to make those extra attempts. No. To me, you value my work and you seek and come to me. I am not going to solicit your business.
Sure.
So that's been, and that's worked for me well. That's worked for, and place like medicine that I'm in, I still think it is sacrosanct. I still treat it,
I agree.
Though aesthetics has become a business, for me, I'm still a doctor.
Yeah. I mean, between the both of us, I know that the kind of patients that you handle from across the country and the world, even if you give the list out, I know you don't do that, but even if you give the list out, it's a big privileged list to have, on board. But, that comes to the question that when you're dealing with such pretty men and women in the business, and they're coming to you to, in a way, look beautiful, but all of them have their insecurities or fears and all. How do you deal with, men and women who are, though beautiful, come with internal insecurities? Because yours is a very tricky job. Like, how do you, and considering this is a podcast which is focusing at women, the reason I'm asking you is that you can do no matter how much amount of work you can do on your face till you're internally fit and till you internally believe things don't get. What is your advice on such situations?
I get a lot of women who, like you said, are really sad because of the looks.
Yeah.
Whether they have less hair on the head or they have acne scars or they have a nose that they think is unattractive. Yeah. And it really traumatizes them.
Yeah.
It's easy for us to sit on the other fence and say, it should not traumatize them. So I do not want to be that preacher. It does affect people. Whether their weight, their color, their face, their hair, it does affect people. My job here is to simply try and see how to tell them not to let that affect them to that extent. Sure. Try and make them see what can be changed in a healthy way with not too much of a long-term repercussion and something which still can be maintained with little work.
Sure.
So I put things in baskets for them saying, I never point out things. That's not what I do. If you tell me your concern, then I would say, this concern cannot be handled. Nothing can be done. Please don't go knocking door to door. Let that be. This concern we can improve to a certain extent. This concern, I will right now fix it.
Yeah.
This is how I would end up making it into buckets. So the clutter is gone from them. So the big hill which says, I am not beautiful, is cut down to this and this more in a technical way.
Sure.
This is why my self-esteem is low. This is why my mom doesn't love me, husband doesn't love me, whoever. 2, you totally cut it down to make it look very technical.
Sure. The
And
reality.
then say, yeah, this. Oh, come on, we have 20 other people like this. So they suddenly feel light about the situation.
Sure.
And then I'm fixing something immediately. So that makes them feel extremely nice right then. Then I'm giving them something and telling them a goal of, say, let's say 3 months, 6 months is going to get better. So they're going with an agenda which is making them very hopeful and happy. And then there is something they know can't be done. So they learn to deal with it and pack it up. To me, that's the only way. And trust me, that has worked with everyone.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But that again comes back to the same question. How do women, or how, if it's me or women like me, right, who are independent in some way, I mean, completely independent in financially or work-wise, and have families, but most of the women that you would deal with are dealing with issues of self-love, right?
Yeah.
How do you what advice do you have for women, and somewhere that self-love starts from the outside beauty. Taking care of yourself. What advice do you have for women who are beginning to even question their self-love?
I think all of us go through lows at times.
Yeah.
I'm sure you have, I have. All of us try and look for someone else to appreciate your beauty or your love. Or maybe that one person that you want to appreciate you who doesn't. And then even if the world says you're beautiful, maybe it doesn't matter. We all go through all of these things. It's a part of life is all I can say. There's no great gyan I can give because I'm also a regular human being who goes through all of this.
Yeah.
So, but all I want to tell is, especially as women, like you said, we take care of our house with so much passion. You don't mind spending any amount on the house, making sure that's beautiful. You have you want to take care of your husband, whose health you will take care of, whose heart oil, whose head oil, everything you are fixing. Your children you're fixing, you're doing everything. But somehow when it comes to take care of yourself, there's a little guilt associated. Oh my God, am I spending so much on myself?
Yeah.
So I kind of want people to get away from that and say, it's literally like the oxygen mask in an airline. Pull it up for yourself first.
Sure.
Then you can do it to the rest of the family. And the first thing starts by making yourself happy. Now, whether that is wellness, whether that is external beauty, whether that is buying something, you know what makes you happy.
Sure.
So please make yourself happy is all I can say. I'm not saying necessarily you have to take care of your skin and your hair. One of my very close friends has full of acne khaddas on her face. She says, Rashmi, that just doesn't matter. But her hair starts falling, she gets maha upset. So it depends for each one of us what is bothering us. For some people, it may not be look at all.
Yeah.
It could be something else. So just make yourself happy.
That's amazing. I mean, I think very rightfully said. But I mean, if it's about self-love and making yourself happy and all, what are the rituals that you personally on a daily basis follow for your self-care? I mean, I'm just very keen.
So as a child, till I grew up and came here, the first thing I used to do is open my eyes and search for my mom. I had to see my mom's face. Like I had to. So that to me, that one smiling good morning would make my day. And then I used to skip around. We lived in Bangalore, so it was a huge home. Skip on the staircase, come jumping here, there. My day would be made with my mom. Now I wake up and first look at my daughter's face. She gives me a nice, happy good morning. My day is done. So it starts with that. For me, that is self-love. That's it. I'm loved. I'm feeling happy. That's fine. Then, of course, like my mom, I make sure that I take care of my skin, my hair, all that is nice before I step out of my room. So that makes me happy to make sure I've taken care of myself. I have to put a cream early in the morning also. So I wash my face and then I put a nice cream in the morning, which should nicely smell good and feel nice for me, which is that just for that 1.5 hour till I go to shower.
Yeah.
So for me at that time, only fragrance matters. So I don't care what it does to my skin. So I'm looking at something which feels good. The sensorial matter most. So just put something which is a nice sensorial for me. And I'm out. Then I have I love Kashmiri kava. So I end up having my Kashmiri kava with some badams in it, roasted. So it just makes me, and when it turns out perfect, I feel very happy. When they burn it, I get irritated. So for me, those little things matter.
Things matter.
Yeah. And then that's it. Then I get ready fast. I come into the office. Things go smooth. It's nice. Things don't go smooth. I can get irritated very fast.
what happens when you travel? And timelines are all over the place because you do travel a lot because of the Hyderabad office.
I never get jet lagged, even if I go abroad. I don't get jet lagged. I manage even that. I manage to either sleep in the flight right. I manage to get up in the right time. I manage my jet lag.
Discipline. That means, again, discipline.
That's it. It all boils down to discipline.
So your mental makeup,
mind over matter. I totally believe in it. I can be boiling with fever and nobody will know if I have work. I will get up and come. So in fact, that has made me sometimes I think an insensitive person, because if somebody says something is aching or I have fever, I have no empathy for them. I'm like, if I can get up and go, you can get up and go. Come on now, stop being sissy, get up and do what you have to. You can sleep at night. Take a tablet and sleep at night.
Yeah.
It's just that. So to me, it's mind over matter, totally.
Yeah. But I mean, I think, the more I talk about discipline and mind over matter and all of that, I think all these qualities go back to being applied pretty much in every aspect of your life, whether running the business, whether, taking care of Upasana and home, being with your, mom, or, seeing your patients. I know, in office also, I see you literally like, tuck. You have a very uncanny ability to, kind of see multiple patients at the same time, see them quickly, and they're all going out happy. How do you is it easy to just move from one thing to the other?
It is. I'm a very people person. I have to like someone. If I don't like someone, I can be pretty nasty. Even if it is a patient or my team that I work with or people, I have to connect at a human level somewhere. And take 1 second to connect. So even with patients, that's what happens. That's why I have happy patients. So I connect with each one of them. I may not know their name forever, but I have that connect, which I know. So for me, it's that connect which really matters, is what I think. I mean, if I sit to think of what is it special that I also know that patients are happy, even online when they meet me, they're gushing, they're so happy. So to me, it's the human connect that I try to do, and I'm genuine. Even if I have to say so, I'm genuine. So I think that comes across. That's transparent. The genuineness is very transparent in life.
Lovely. I think, Rashmi, I'm almost, coming towards the end of the conversation. I just wanted to kind of take a glimpse into your life and show people how you're doing these multiple things at the same time, running a business and the clinic and, home, etc. But more importantly, I think I wanted to understand the mental makeup, and the only answer that keeps coming on my face is discipline. This is something, I don't know if you remember, but this is something that you told me last time I met you, and you said we were discussing something for me, and you said, no, Anshu, just discipline yourself on this and you'll be sorted. And and I was like, yeah. But this was really, really lovely. Short, quick conversation, but I think a lot of women were looking forward to hearing from you on this. When I spoke to people about, you coming on board, they said, hey, we want to know how a doctor kind of runs her life and, the multiple other things. So this was really, really, really interesting. And thank you so much for coming and doing this for us. And I hope to see you soon. Thank you for watching this. If you've enjoyed this conversation, make sure you hit the like button, comment what was your favorite part, and also subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to press the bell notification to never miss a new episode, because we have a lot more coming. This podcast is available on Spotify, Apple, Google, JioSaavn by the name Questions I Wanted to Ask. You can listen to it wherever you like. Link will be in the description. You can follow me on social media, Instagram, Twitter, etc. And all the links are in the description. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.